selection and prioritization process, assuming that we are operating in a perfect world where we can sit down and identify the highest risk auditees without input from outside aid entities such as Congress saying go out and do an audit of X institution or over X issue. We'll use our risk scoring methodology to identify who will go out and audit. I'll dive into this process a little bit more detail in the next slide, but at a high level, to ensure that all entities across the spectrum are included, we assess risk by organization type: large research universities, small colleges, nonprofits, and all the remaining different categories of recipients of NSF funds. One thing that we've found recently is that risk is often greater at smaller institutions, and not because they are willfully doing a bad job or not willing to follow any of NSF's or federal regulations, but we find that with smaller staffs, with fewer resources to administer sponsored projects, there's just a little bit more risk involved in administering NSF's funds. So as such, we've been tweaking our audit process to select a few more audits at smaller institutions versus the past several years where if you've watched the institutions we've gone out and audited, it's generally been the handful of the largest research institutions in the country. On the right side of this slide, we'll touch on availability of resources. So in our Office of Audit, we currently have under 30 staff members in total. That's not 30 people who are going out and conducting these external audits. That's 30 people as a whole. So we have staff working on data analytics. We have staff working on NSF's financial statements and other required audits. We have staff working on internal performance audits of NSF, and then we do have our external auditors. So there's a lot to cover for a small staff that we have. To help put that in perspective, our 30 staff members are required to oversee and audit NSF's $8.1 billion budget for 2019. So there's a lot to cover with few people. And we oftentimes get the question, why do we have so many audits that are done by CPA firms? Well, this is one of those primary reasons, because we need to be able to supplement our workforce in the most effective way possible to have the most coverage over the highest risk areas year over year. So one thing that we do note is that the funds that we use to procure our CPA audits are fully dependent on the appropriations that we receive from Congress each year, and unfortunately this does mean that funding uncertainty from year to year does directly impact the way we plan and execute our work, and in certain extreme circumstances it could directly impact how flexible we can be with deadlines during the course of any given audit. But that's just kind of the background and perspective of how we approach our audits. And just to answer a quick question, I have IPA audits written on the slide, and I've used the word CPA audits. In this context, IPA is an independent public accounting firm, so it's not the typical IPA sense that you all are familiar with NSF.